Okay, about time for me to do another one here. Complex Mind, Simple Man. Project 2028 continued. So I'm going to make this one pretty quick. Sorry, I haven't put one out in a minute. As I told you, I swear, me and recording were just not something that I like to do. But anyway, Project 2028. Today, I want to talk about congressional reform. Okay, so this is part of whatever party or politician decides that they want to run for president and they're going to lead this country into the next steps on a true America First agenda, which is what I suspect someone's going to try to plug or do, or some version of that, right? So we got to get back to taking care of America. And so I'm giving out my Project 2028 ideas that I would like to see coming from somebody. All right. So congressional reform. First one, the big one, term limits. All right. So I think that a good number, whether it be the House or it be the Senate, a good number is 12 years. Okay. We have, I think it's Representative Grassley, I want to say. This dude's been in the House for 50 years. That doesn't make any sense. Shame on the voters for putting him in there that many times. That's 25 times thereabouts that he's gotten, elected. But 50, come on, bro. No. So we have to get this thing from being a not just a retirement plan, but like you shouldn't die in office of natural causes because you've been there for so long. Like that shouldn't be a thing, right? Now, if you happen to pass from natural causes, then that's different. But you're there so long that, yeah, this where you're gonna kick out at, and it's just it doesn't feel good for a couple reasons. One, that means you're like 70s, 80s, right? Some cases 90s, and you're just mathematically you are so detached from the youngest group of adults, right? Like you're 80 and the young voters are 20. You're 60 years apart. 60 years apart. That is like today's technology, but you got started in 1960. Right? You guys started when color TV was either new or not here yet. Certainly was no concept of internet. You didn't even have email, right? So it's like you're so far apart. It just doesn't seem right. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way on both or all sides of the political spectrum or whatever. So we got to put limits on. I say 12 because 12 years as a senator, that's 2 terms. If you couldn't get what you needed done in 2 terms, then you really shouldn't really be there. And I understand one of the reasons that you're there so long is because of how broken the system is, so that you have to literally be there for 12 to 18 years before you're able to start doing anything, because they have this whole freshman, sophomore nonsense. When you're serving a 6-year term, that makes no sense. We shouldn't be looking at freshman, sophomore. No, you're a senator. You come in, you take this, in some cases, to some people, this minor paycheck, and you work on behalf of your state for 6 years. 12 if they like what you did the first 6 years. And then you go back home. You are a citizen into the Congress, and you lend your talents to the purpose of legislating. And if you do that within the 12-year time, now you're going to be aged reasonably well. You're going to either be in most likely, you're going to be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like you're going to be in one of those. And that's reasonable for what you're having to stand up for and work through. And we do this on a 12 years. Now you'll have constant refreshing of people. And so, yeah, 12 years. For the House, I still say 12 years. You get up to 6 terms if people want you. Now, if you can do 6 in one and 6 in the other, make it 24. That's your business. That's you and your voters. But yeah, 12 years, term limits, definitely. Another one within congressional reform is this insider trading. They need to make it so it's a felony, just like it is for most anyone else, to act on insider information that is not publicly known or available. Okay, so definitely insider trading, make it a felony. Also, make it so that they can't even trade on their stocks. Their portfolios are frozen from the moment they get elected. All right. So once they've won their primary and they've won their general, at that moment, it's done. No more individual trades, no more trades at all. Everything goes blind and it's frozen. Nothing coming in, nothing going out. You are where you are. And also keep an eye on close family members. So spouses and children, spouses, parents, and children, and siblings. All of them, I'm sorry, you're running for a federal office. All of them are now subject to that scrutiny just to make sure that their values and their profitability didn't all of a sudden go sky high, right? So they're audited just like you're audited. Not as deep as a sitting person, but they're still audited to make sure that they're not cashing in on these favors and trades. So definitely do that. And to stop insider trading. Also, if we do that, you ain't got to worry about so much about you being able to trade on a company industry that you have to oversee because you can't trade. So yep, insider trading, knock that off. Another thing, increase their salaries. I don't really know what the salaries are in the 6 figures, but increase their salaries in House and Senate, and make it illegal as a felony for them to be receiving gifts and things of financial value and favors over, say, $500. All right. I don't know. Pick a number. When I was in banking, I think the number was like $10. Right. But put a limit on that. So you're not getting all these, you're not getting free golf country club memberships. You're not getting your kid put into a private school. Your brother isn't getting put on a board somewhere. None of that. If you do any of those things, you're under investigation by the FBI and you're subject to criminal penalty. Period. Point blank. Here we go. Now, you cut out all the abilities for these things to happen, and now lobbyists have to do what lobbyists are supposed to do, which is make or beseech the elected officials for their personal or business interests, but they can't use money to make it happen, right? So now if you're able to convince this person this is the best thing for them to do and that helps sway the vote, whatever, fine. But cut out all the financial benefits and like I said, increase their salaries. Similar if you've ever heard me talk about law enforcement, like they should make more money, but their standards should be much higher and their consequences should be also much higher for any bad behavior, right? Personally responsible, but similar thing, but for Congress, make it so they just make their salaries. When they're done with their time, then they go home. Okay. That does a couple of things. One, it makes it a little bit easier for them to do their jobs. So they're not always dialing for dollars. Two, it reduces the impact of cronyism and bribery, right? So you got less time to manipulate these people. And you got to be a lot more creative in how you're doing it because you can't pay them off. You can't bribe them. So I guess the only thing you can do is threaten them. And that's always been against the law. So we get you there, right? So that's another one. So the insider trading, knock that off. So we got term limits, we got insider trading. And then public financing. and this is presidential as well, but speaking with Congress, then, if you want to run for president or run for Congress, then these should be state funded. Maybe at least in the general, right? I think the primary, you should lower the games. You got to step in and interfere or interrupt these games that are played, where some states or some localities will say you have to have 10,000 signatures, and then they go in and knock off 25% of your signatures just because they can, right? We got to really get some controls in on that. Clean up the whole system so that people who have a good idea or feel that they have a good idea and they want to run for office and they want to serve their community, that they can do so, right? The application fee should be manageable. I'm just making up a number. I didn't do any studies on this, but application fee should be like $500. All right. And then that's it. Right. And then maybe you have to get some signatures. Right. So you might say that you have to have 1,000 signatures, but they don't all have to be, you're walking around like, old school Acorn. Hey, sign this, right? We're in the modern era. We can come up with better things. But that's one reason I'm not really care about the signature piece. Like, let the primary happen. Open this thing up so that people can come in and have the market of ideas. Yes, there should be some barriers. So that's like the application fee and criminal background checks, right? But that's about it. You don't have a warrant. You've already served your time. You can run. And there you go. So I would definitely say that, public funding, and we have to clean up the electoral process, right? So that's my next piece of that. And then there should, once you get into office, I think they say something like the House members, for example, get like $100,000 for their staff. Well, $100,000 doesn't go as far as you might think, because if you're living in DC, that could really be one person's salary, but you need to have a staff of like 4 or 5 people at least. So we need to look at, how do you fund that? That'd be a different discussion because I haven't really looked into it, but I will put that in there with the public funding aspect of it, and then let's see. So that's public funding. And then the last one that I would say is, and I'm going to do a different video on this one. But the last one I would say is we need to restructure, and this is why it's the last one and why I will have its own video, because the Constitution as it stands does not like this idea. Every state shouldn't have the same number of senators. Sorry. Every state should start out with the same number of senators, right? So I have it on my note sheet. I don't remember this, so I'm just going to kind of give it off the top of my head. But like, every state should have 1 senator, period. Every state should have 1 senator. And then based on population and population density, right, you should get another senator up to a maximum of 3. So you would, because that's a direct representation of how many people live in your state. How is it that you have 30,000 people in your whole state and you have the same amount of representation as a state that has 3 million? That's not right. There's no way to make that right. If your state would just be better, more people would live there. The fact that nobody wants to live there, you don't get as much of a voice as the other people, right? Like, up your state, big up your state. Get people to want to live where you at. Like, stop being so, scared of or resistant to change, and then you'll see that people will start drifting out of some of these other bigger states because they don't really like those states either. They got problems in California. They got problems in New York. They got problems with Georgia, Florida, right? If you can live in Georgia, you can live in Alabama, except that Alabama ain't got nobody in it, and they're really backwards with their politics. So improve the environment of living in your state, more people will live in your state and you'll have more representation, which is a reflection of people living in your state. So that would be my last one. We got to redo how these things are done. At the Senate level, we need to do a tiered level of how many senators you get based on population. On the House level, we need to do the independent jurisdiction, like line drawing, so that politicians aren't selecting their voters. Their voters can get back to selecting their representation. So I don't know if that's going to be a grid. I don't know if that's going to be some kind of other kind of special mathy thing that they do, but it shouldn't have districts that do these weird shapes all over the place. It should be based on, loosely speaking, population. It should be looked at geography, and it should be looked at like similar interests, I guess you could say, right? But and when I say similar interests, that's like when they look at what they kind of do now, but they do it in the extreme through gerrymandering. But they look at, Democratic voters and Republican voters, and they try to, draw, what, now that I'm saying it out loud, screw that. I don't care about your interests. I don't care about your voting patterns. It should be on your population and the geography. Okay? They can't just drop a grid on it. This is why you need independent bodies that draw the lines. Can't just drop a grid on the state, because what happens if your state's like Michigan? You got the Great Lakes and stuff. You drop that grid and you just underrepresented one section and way overrepresented another section because this section ain't number water. So you got to be smart about it. But have the independent things or the multi-party, you know what I'm saying? Figure it out. California and a couple other places have their versions of it. Improve upon it, make it work, and then go with that. So yeah, there you go. Those are my ideas for congressional reform. Of course, we could go into details and start, looking at, how they select their pages and they select their apprentices and all that other stuff. But that ain't for me. That's for whoever's going to run for office and try to put out a plan. I'm saying these are the big things for me. Hit on them. Explain how you can make that work and how that would benefit all of us as Americans, because this is where the, America first, but not America alone mentality can carry some weight. Because at the end of the day, we are all Americans. We are all invested in this country to some extent or the other, even if we have complicated feelings about it, like I do. But this is still my home, right? So I want to see it thrive. I want to see it do better. And I want to see it do better for everyone. The people who vote this way or that way, it doesn't matter, as far as America investing in its people and investing in its future. And we do that together. We don't do that with all these games that we keep playing. That's why everybody's checking out right now. And we got crooks and robber barons running wild. So Project 2028, congressional reform. Told you this is going to be a pretty quick one. It was. I thank you.